Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. If you're listening in stereo, I'm the slightly taller one, Shane O'Connor. He's ever so a fraction of an inch really, slightly smaller, Adrian Lacey. And if you're not joined us before, we chat about comedy. We chat about comedy shows. We chat about comedy performers.
And we have the sound of a car passing through an open window.
That was almost right on cue, wasn't it, that one? I've got to say, brilliant. It is a very hot summer evening here in the UK. And because of that, I'm sat here in my pants. And honesty is the best policy, unless of course
I don't think it is in that instance.
Unless obviously you're doing insurance, in which case fully comp all the way.
Are your pants fully comp? Don't answer that.
They're semi-comp.
Third party fire and theft. We've got a show to do. Let's get on with it.
Sorry, I was going to say it's a really, really warm, hot, sticky summer evening in the UK. I never thought I'd say that in a sentence in my lifetime, but there you go. So we've both got the windows open, so you might hear horses gallop past or something like that.
If they gallop past my window, that's a bit of a worry with a small garden like mine.
And plus he's 18 floors up as well, so that's it's a
very tall horses.
It's a Pegasus. But you never hear the hooves of those things coming, do you? That's the problem. Anyway, quickly about the podcast, in case you're thinking, oh my God, what have I wandered across here? The Comedy Slab, we call it.
Funny enough, I'm thinking that as well.
You're thinking, why did I turn off? That's a different thing entirely. We call it the Comedy Slab because I guess in the best tradition of Quincy. I used to love Quincy as a kid. Did you ever watch Quincy? Where he was the medical examiner.
I ate some once. Oh no, that's Quince maybe.
He was the medical examiner, and he used to, dissect the body and find out who was murdered and how they were murdered. In a similar kind of way, we dissect the programme and figure out who was murdered and why they were murdered.
Or if anyone should be murdered.
Yeah. And the basic premise is that I choose one week, you choose one another week, don't you? And
pretty much.
This is my turn this week, and it's weird because when we started this podcast, I envisaged that we would choose things. I'd be choosing things for you and going, oh, you've got to watch this because I'm a big fan of it. And already, only 3 podcasts in, and I'm saying, I've never seen it, you've never seen it, let's give it a whiz.
I quite like that, though, a completely blank canvas.
Yeah. And all the time I was watching it, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, no, Adrian's going to make of this, whether he's going to enjoy it or not enjoy it or whatever. So the moment of truth has come anyway. We decided that for this week, if you didn't hear last week's podcast, for this week we were going to catch up with a fairly new comedy and a return to comedy on the TV for ex-Python John Cleese, a programme called Hold the Sunset. And for those who don't know, just very briefly, it's stellar cast, which we'll talk about in a minute, so I won't rattle off the cast. But basically, Alison Steadman is a retired lady. She plays a character called Edith, and she accepts. We didn't see this because we've only watched the 3rd episode, haven't we? Straight off the bat, kind of.
I think wasn't it 4th?
Was it the 4th one?
It was episode 4. No, it's the marriage counsel.
The marriage counsel.
The subtitle of this edition.
Yeah. But previous to that, she'd accepted a marriage proposal from John Cleese's character Phil, and their plan is to sell their house and start a new life. But the problem is their son, in the form of Jason Watkins, who people will probably know from Trolleyed and various other things like that, where he splits up with his wife and decides to come back and live with the parents. I think I got that right, haven't I? That's more or less the basis of the story.
More or less, yes.
What have I missed out?
Maybe less.
What have I missed out? Have I missed a bit?
No, I'm very impressed by your research. It is quite odd coming into a series that deliberately and knowingly, episode 4, bit perverse, and I'm inclined to complain that they don't sort of help you with that, and then I remember it's not a normal experience to actually join a series by then. I think it's reasonable for the writer to assume you've got a fair bit of knowledge of the back plot.
Although, how weird you should say that, because I thought, I quite like the fact that it was episode 3.
Sorry.
And I quite like the fact that we came in at 3 because in a way, you find out how much is a given by episode 3 and how much of it, do you know what I mean? It's how much is a kind of, you're expected to know and you're expected to keep up, and how much they explain. I thought they did a lot of explaining, didn't you? Didn't you get that at all? Did you not pick that up?
I thought there was a lot of explaining within the context of the episode itself, are you talking in a wider, more general sense?
Well, I felt you could go into episode 3 and not bother to watch 1 and 2 because there was so much explanation in the script.
Yeah, I'm a bit conflicted about that. I watched it twice, so again, we're not typical viewers in a way. I kind of watched it once for an overview, and then a second time because I'm a bit slow. No, because I wanted to sort of pick up on perhaps a bit more detail. But I'm trying to
figure out which
what...
one John Cleese was.
That's the woman on the left, right? I'm dying to know what's the headline about, if you were to write a review, either online or good old-fashioned print, what would the headline be?
What would I write? I'd write, "Hold the Sunset. It's not funny." That's what I would say, and I don't mean that in a wicked, nasty, spiteful way. I thought it was a quality piece of work. It had got a quality cast, quality production. There's no doubt about that. But I just didn't find it funny. I just didn't think it was funny. What would you write as a headline?
Yes, I should have thought of an answer to my own question in advance, shouldn't I? I'd want to have some sort of punning twist. There's a production company called Sunset and Vine. No. Well, essentially,
you were going to say Sunset and Vile, were you?
Yeah, I did wonder if I could do something with that. I don't want them to sue because obviously it's nothing to do with them. We should say they make sports programs. Sunset, but no lines. No, it doesn't work very well. But essentially, there are no quotable lines in there except bad ones.
No.
So I think actually you've been quite generous. I don't think there's any cause for being spiteful generally, unless the person we're critiquing is known for their spite. I think we might feel a bit more gloves off about it. I desperately wanted to like it, and I hadn't realised that Cleese hadn't done any sitcoms since Fawlty Towers.
Which was, don't forget, it was only 2 episodes, 2 series, 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And, it stayed around this country, it's hung around this country, for better or worse. I think he is vastly overrated, Fawlty Towers, always have done as well. But yeah, you do wonder whether he's left it too long and too late. I don't know, the Python reunion I thought was painful to watch. I thought it was really desperate to watch and really sad, and again, I don't mean with an ounce of animosity. It upset me really because I kind of thought, I should have left this.
Do you mean a stage reunion?
Yeah,
they did,
the tour thing that they did. I just thought, oh gosh, that was embarrassing. Now with this, I'm like you. I went into this and I don't know why. Probably because of the fine cast, and I can't praise the cast highly, and I think a lot of the criticism that they had said, all pointed out, what a cast, why isn't this working? This is amazing cast, and I went into it like you, thinking, I really want to like this, I really want it to be great, and I kind of, felt really upbeat about it. I came out of it not feeling angry or dismayed or anything other than a little bit sad, but I kind of felt there was part of me that felt that in a way it worked, but it was billed wrong. Maybe it was a comedy drama or something. Do you know what I mean? And maybe they should have retweaked the script so that there was more of the drama, because it had some really nice moments, and some of the characters. The real problem I felt as well was that the main thrust of where they were, this Jason Watkins character, the son that came home, and a lot of people had said this after I'd made my notes, and then I read some reviews, and they said that he just wasn't very likeable, was he?
No. Well, should we hear a little bit now? I don't know. We obviously want to do it. We've got 3 clips, haven't we? In all?
Yeah.
We want to do it in story order, so I don't think he comes in the first one, does he?
He doesn't come in until quite late. I thought it was really weird, the billing as well, because a lot of the early scenes that we saw revolved around Queenie, this Anne Reid character, that Anne Reid from Dinner Ladies, that people probably know her from. She was Jean in Dinner Ladies, wasn't she? And I thought, this weird that, like, it was supposed to be a John Cleese and Alison Steadman. There was more of her, wasn't there? She had more lines in the start.
Yeah, initially. So it's her we hear. Is it the clip in the kitchen first?
That's it, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so Queenie, and then John Cleese and Alison Steadman come in then, I think, is what we're going to hear, isn't it?
So, but Queenie in the first instance in this clip is talking to Wendy. So this is the
estranged wife of the son who's come home.
And so hence daughter-in-law of the Alison Steadman character, Edith.
I'm having a panic attack.
Oh, you haven't got time for that now.
Oh, hello, Wendy.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Philip. Oh, it's nice to see you. You're looking well. Well and nice.
Thank goodness new.
Oh, Queenie, you're a whiz.
A whiz and still here.
Right, well, I'll just put it away and then I'll be off.
Well, I think I'll go for a stroll.
Oh, no, please don't go on my account.
Well, I was thinking more on my account, actually.
It's just, I've got something quite important to say, and I'd like you to be here, Philip, when I say it, because you're so wise and decent and nice in these circumstances. Well, actually, you're always kind and helpful in most, all circumstances.
Well, we do our best.
And that was... I forget, about 7-8 minutes in, I think, to the episode. John Cleese making his first appearance in that particular episode. And of course, obviously, I don't know how the other episodes stack up. As we said earlier, it's episode 3, isn't it? But you kind of get an idea of the dynamic of the characters and how they're bouncing off each other, don't you? There, I suppose.
Yes. Can we just talk about, and maybe initially in general terms, if I was to ask you, here's a comedy trivia question, but it is completely relevant to what you were saying just before we played that clip out. If I was to ask you, at what point did we stop hearing cackling Auntie Edie from Acton in the audience in sitcoms, i.e., live studio audience laughing along? What do you think was the first show still described as a sitcom, but which didn't have a laughter track? I'm talking UK origination.
God, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have the first time. Do you know what? I never notice it unless it becomes a problem. Because this doesn't have a laughter track, does it, at all, this particular...
No.
But some do. Isn't it at the discretion of the production company, though? Don't they decide?
Oh, it's completely their decision. I used to say The Office changed the dynamic there, because that was the first one I could think of. And then I recently was reminded, as one show before then, also BBC. Do you want me to tell you?
Go on, not a clue.
It's The Royal Family.
Oh, right, yeah. It wouldn't fit, though, would it, really, in that sense, I suppose, because they wanted it to feel like you were in the front room with them.
Absolutely, yes. And, thinking about it, and if they're watching a comedy, you need to hear the laughter track of the comedy they're watching, rather than having lots of laughter, which could grate. I
must admit, I could do without it every time. I really could.
Well, I think that there are pluses and minuses, and I fear... I mean, yes, you could go down the route that you suggested, the problems that this show's had. If it was billed as comedy drama, then in comedy drama, you don't expect a laughter track. So that sorts that one out. The good thing about having a live studio audience is that it instills a discipline to have a certain gag rate. And it would be deafening silence for a lot of the time here because there aren't enough gags. It's certainly not enough gags to brand it as a sitcom, which is part of the problem. I think there's a major problem with the writing, I'm sorry to say. And again, I don't say that lightly. And the writer has worked with Terry Gilliam and so on. He's got a good pedigree.
And he's from Dudley and all.
Well, say no more.
So you can't really knock him for that, can you?
You can't just up the road from Yo.
Oh.
That was very that was like a southerner trying to sound like a West.
Who, me or you?
You, just then.
Oh, I've not been well.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right. He's worked a lot with the Pythons, didn't he? I mean, that was the thing about the guy. And I do wonder whether this is his first stab at writing something, or he's always had this as an idea or whatever. And because he's so well connected, he said to John Cleese, can you be in it kind of thing, and that's given it the weight that's got it onto the screen. Maybe am I being unkind there? Do you think?
Well, no. Well, the truth is, neither of us knows the background. But I mean, when you see that, as Charles McEwan were talking about, the writer of Hold the Sunset was also a writer on Brazil, and I thought he was a writer on Life of Brian, but I was confused. He's also an actor, so he acted in Life of Brian. But in Brazil, here's the significant thing: he wasn't the only writer. The co-writers were Terry Gilliam. People won't be surprised by that. He also directed it, didn't he? And Tom Stoppard. And forgive me, I'm no Shakespeare, but I think if I was co-writing with Terry Gilliam and Tom Stoppard collectively, we'd probably come up with something rather good. And although my credit might be on screen, I'm not sure how much credit I could take for the high quality lines. I mean, that's a good team to work with. And I wonder whether he's suddenly exposed. And again, not wishing to be nasty, but we were saying only in the last episode, you talking about Colin Holt. What I nearly said, what a monster job it is writing. What was it, in that instance, 4 half-hour episodes or 8, whatever it was. It was 2 series. It was 8 episodes. Colin Holt, and you said what a task that is. Well. It's no coincidence, is it? Most sitcoms tend to be written by a pairing, don't they? Galton and Simpson, you've interviewed one of those. And, Lafreniere and Clement. I'm going back to the old days. But that can't be coincidence, can it?
No, and again, it's a weird one because I came away and like normally you'd think, well, what a load of rubbish, because there weren't any jokes in it. I didn't actually walk away from it thinking what a load of rubbish. I thought, where's the jokes? Do you know what I mean? But I didn't. It didn't. It was weird. Like I watched something and think, oh, that's an embarrassment. I can't believe that they've done that. It's awful. It's that bad. But I didn't come away thinking that with this. But I don't know if that's because the characters were held up so strongly by the cast. Maybe that's what saved it.
Well, I think, if it hadn't been for an all-name cast, then I think it would have sunk without trace if it ever reached the screen. And again, I don't say that lightly. And hey, easy for 2 guys here just to critique something we've watched. I do some writing, and in fact, I've been critiqued recently by. I won't name them to protect their own career, but very generously, in the sense of generous that they took up time to listen to one of my solo podcasts, and I was told, I will fess up here, not enough gags. So I've been on the receiving end of that. And
but somebody at some point stops you and takes you to one side and says not enough gags. What happened here? Why? Where was that process? That's what I don't get.
This is where I think, having worked in TV for years, I absolutely don't know what happened specifically here, but I know how things can get so political. People are surprised, if you've never seen a comedy show being made, how serious people are about it. But also if people got reputations, and egos can get bruised. But I tell you what came to mind. It was a statement of my dad's, which appears to be nothing to do with this whatsoever. He used to say, for an accident to happen takes for more than one thing to go wrong. So if you're driving along, someone steps out in front of you. If you're a good driver, you're sober, your brakes work, you won't hit them.
Yeah.
If you're drunk, not paying attention, and they step out in front of you, 2 things have gone wrong, and you'll probably flatten them, and that would be curtains. And I think more than one thing has gone wrong here. And I think I would question what's going on directorially. There is such a word, isn't there?
Yeah.
There are loads of eggy pauses that I wonder, what am I meant to be making of this reaction shot? I know that's quite a technical thing to think, but I just sat there thinking, right, okay, we've paused here. The action's paused. I'm meant to be reacting somehow. There's a reason why it's paused. Yeah. And I didn't know what it was. Did you feel that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. I mean, you do spend a lot of time bewildered because, and then thinking about what you've just watched, which kind of ruins what you're watching next, because you're thinking, well, what happened in that.
Yeah,
bit.
exactly. And then you think, is it me?
The editing I found really, really bizarre as well, and I thought the editing, because it was done in a bizarre way, meant that they had to explain through dialogue so much more. Should we just let people have another listen and just
sure.
give them another taste? Because this is the first appearance in this episode of Jason Watkins, who plays this character Roger, who's the son who's come home to roost and ruined all the plans for Alison Steadman and John Cleese character. And this is his interaction with Queenie, a character we've already heard. Who I've got to mention her. What a fine actress Anne Reid is. I didn't realise in her early career in the 50s she'd actually appeared with Tony Hancock in Hancock's Half Hour. Yeah, she did about 5 episodes of Hancock's Half Hour.
Was that radio or TV or
TV? I think it was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 5 episodes, which I just think is. And she was in Coronation Street as well. She was one of Ken Barlow's wives who got electrocuted.
How many wives got electrocuted then?
Well, sorry, yes, she was one of Ken Barlow's wives.
Comma.
She got electrocuted.
New thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's in the road ahead?
Have a listen to the. I don't know if it illustrates the point, but it will certainly illustrate the interaction between the characters, and also, I think, in a way, demonstrates the likability of Jason Watkins' character, which I've kind of felt had to be a sort of a likeable roguey kind of character. But have a listen, see what you think. Have a listen to this.
Rog, can I borrow some of these?
If you promise to bring them back.
Yeah, of course. It's for the gig at the centre tonight for the oldies, the Crock and Roll Club.
Oh, Queenie, you're a gas.
Oh, a gas. I don't think I like the sound of that. I put Sibelius's violin concerto on once in the hospital, for a change. The administrator said it was music to top yourself by and made me take it off.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, so that's, I suppose, relatively an intimate chat, if one can call it that, low-key chat, at least in the garage. Rather bizarrely, just a couple of minutes before then, we come into that scene with Queenie on the drums. So you're laughing now. I bet you didn't laugh when you watched it the first time. Because your brain's trying to process it. Have we gone into surreal flight here? And then, and he's doing some gurning stroke dad dancing. He's
playing like an air guitar with a broom handle or something, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's doing,
yeah. And then he says to her when the music stops, which thank God it does quite soon. And I'm not convinced by her playing, but there's an over-the-shoulder shot, presumably of a real musician. Anyway, a minor niggle. But she says, "Oh yes, I was in the Salvation Army band. I played the trumpet."
Yeah.
Again, is that meant to be funny, surreal? Your assumption is she played the drums. Am I going nuts, or is the writer going nuts here?
Or it was that was kind of the gag, I suppose, is that you'd think that she played the drums.
But if it was that kind of gaggy show,
but she played the
been
drum
primed for a gag. As it was, it's not a gaggy show, as we've discovered. It's an eggy show, and that was just another moment where I went, huh?
Because she played the drums quite well as well, didn't she? I was sitting there thinking, she's obviously, they've either coached her or she's had a lesson or she knows how to play the drums, because her hands were crossed over and she's playing on the hi-hat and the snare, so she was playing the drums like a drummer would.
Well, I thought the over-the-shoulder shot probably wasn't her, but hey, I'm getting technical again. I just think it couldn't decide. We're back to, is it a sitcom? Is it a traditional, minus the laughter track, is it a traditional sitcom with a high gag rate? Well, no. If it's billed as a comedy drama, like you were saying earlier, then the expectation is lower. I mean, I wasn't sitting there expecting Fawlty Towers Series 3, and I'm sure you weren't.
Do you know what I was expecting? I thought, and I wrote it down somewhere, I was expecting to see a cross between The Last of the Summer Wine and My Family.
Right.
The Last of My Family.
The Last of My Summer Whiny Family. I was actually, the touchstone for me was more another show I worked on, hashtag name drop, in my days of yore at TV Centre, as a sound engineer, as time goes by. And we shouldn't kid ourselves. I mean, at least we're too young for something, you and me, Shane, and that's the age profile, the target audience of this show. It is, without doubt, it's going for a higher age. And again, I don't mean to sound patronising or anything, but there are, it's a different expectation if you're watching something on BBC Three to watching Sunday night on a BBC Two or BBC One, probably a higher age profile.
Their average age apparently was 61.
I read that.
For viewers. But it's interesting you say as time goes by, because the producer, Humphrey Barclay, do you recognise the name Humphrey Barclay? I've just finished John Cleese's book and he mentions Humphrey Barclay in his autobiography, who was another old Cambridge alumni and worked alongside, Tim Brooke Taylor, Bill Oddie, Cleese, Chapman, Jonathan Lynn, went on to produce, to create Yes Minister. And all the rest of those people, but was responsible as a producer for some, what I would say, a real bag of comedy howlers. Things like, do you remember Two's Company with Elaine Stritch and Donald Sinden? 1970s comedy, I think
I
it
was far less critical in those days. That was ITV, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah.
I would credit that at least with putting Elaine Stritch on the map for me, which I think is a good thing. I wish I'd seen her as in a one-woman show, but
Surgical
I
Spirit.
can't say I remember it well enough to think it was a howler.
Surgical Spirit, No Honestly, and the one for me, Desmond's as well, which was I never thought was funny, and A Fine Romance, which I think there are parallels between this and A Fine Romance, because I always say whenever A Fine Romance is rerun, it's not funny. Where are the gags? There aren't any gags in A Fine Romance. Judi Dench and Jeffrey Palmer.
Well, that's the lineup for As Time Goes By.
Sorry, is it As Time Goes By?
Yeah.
It was A Fine Romance.
It
was A Fine Romance then. What was
gosh, you've lost me there.
Oh, I'll have to look that one up.
I confessed in episode 1, I do have some gaps that you could get a truck through.
I don't have gaps, as you can see. I just merged them all together and make it into one giant comedy. So apologies, I got those two a bit muxed up there. But I don't know. It's really. You mentioned to me that this has been recommissioned, hasn't it? This is going to get a second series.
Yeah, I believe that's confirmed now. It doesn't surprise me. The Beeb tends to. I think the default is. Most shows, it was certainly with a cast like this, you get a recommission. Often a recommission is decided upon even before they've seen what the ratings and the reviews are like for the first series.
Right.
It's just the way they work. But whether they can face all the critical flack again. I have to say, the Telegraph, and that speaks to a higher age profile. Forgive the. A bit of a generalisation there, but I found a very kind review, may even have been a 4-star review for Hold the Sunset in the either Daily Telegraph or the Sunday Telegraph.
Wow.
Again, it's if your expectation is you just want a gentle, walk in the park for your eyeballs on a Sunday night or whatever, that will do.
It wasn't bad, was it? It wasn't bad. I wouldn't say it was bad in the strictest sense of the word, where you come away thinking, God, that was bad.
Disappointing would be the main phrase for me. I think.
We've got one more clip. Do you want to? We've got the.
Do we have to? We should look forward to clips, shouldn't we? I'd rather you told a joke.
Do you want to hear the last clip? It's. I suppose it's a bit closer as they come to action. I mean. The weird, I never understood what the glove puppet was all about. He
goes for a job in a toy shop.
Yeah,
but then we see a punch and by he I mean Roger, the prodigal son.
Yeah,
who's come back. We see. Did you think it was more to do with the Punch and Judy, which he hasn't seen, because that's been seen by
John Cleese and Alison Steadman.
Edith, they're on a break
beach,
on the south coast or something. Did you find that confusing? So we saw this character, the alligator or crocodile character in Punch and Judy, which you may have seen. It's an established regular character in a Punch and Judy show at the seaside. By the way, there was no one watching. Maybe that's a metaphor. I'm not sure. And then he's Roger, not Phil. Roger has gone for a job interview at a toy shop.
Yeah.
Didn't get the job. Spoiler alert. This is not going to ruin anything. And then pops up at this party And we haven't even talked about the coincidences. Should we hear the clip first before I rant too much?
This is the party with the crocodile.
So this is an old people's party that's had to relocate due to a fire alarm going off.
Hello, you having fun? Yeah? A bit crowded, isn't it? A lot of people are here. Oh, that's my husband. That's my husband. Roger.
Hi.
This is my husband. This is Roger.
Hi, hello.
And his new friend.
Methuselah, yeah? Hurrah! Pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet you. Pleased to
Roger. Roger, calm down.
I'm glad we played that clip, actually, because that was the closest I thought we came to overacting and being let down by the cast in that one.
I found it excruciating.
Yeah.
But I don't really, again, don't blame Jason Watkins, who played Roger. Some people may know you mentioned another thing he's been in earlier. I know him from W1A.
W1A, yeah.
Sitcom about the BBC.
He did about.
I just felt sorry for him. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say he did Trolleyed. He was the supermarket manager in Trolleyed. I think he must have done about 5 or 6 series of that, but that was on Sky. So unless you get Sky, you wouldn't see that. But yeah, I mean, he was also in, and I was trying to remember in last week's podcast, the Dawn French thing. Remember I said to you, the League of Gentlemen and Dawn French, and they did that thing, and I couldn't think what it was called. He was in that. Psychoville was the name I was trying to remember.
Psychoville, all right, yeah.
But he's got. Do you know, interestingly as well, he's done a lot of straight acting. I think one of his first jobs on the TV was EastEnders.
Right.
He did a couple of episodes of EastEnders. He's done a lot of straight acting, and I think he's an actor who's gone to comedy rather than a comedy actor who's broadened out, sort of thing. But yeah, I know what you mean.
I could be unkind and say he was doing straight acting here, but again, not his fault. He hasn't got any gags.
No.
But he was just, again, it came from nowhere. If it was a surreal show, and then he just sort of shakes his booty and suddenly goes nuts, and he's got this alligator or crocodile on one hand. He's snapping at people, elderly people. Again, we're not set up for this as an audience. It's the writer may think, oh right, let's surprise the audience. All it did was just leave me with a kind of slack jaw, like what again? This recurring thing. What am I meant to make of this? Because I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing is, I suppose, is that we're not in the minority. You know, we're quite well supported in that view. I have to say that it did surprise me, though, because I thought, from everything that I'd heard and read, I thought that it was going to be more dreadful than it was. So that's something. That's a positive to take away. It wasn't as. So I'm clutching at straws here, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. That's not so much a positive as a negative that wasn't quite as negative as it could have been.
How did I get on in my driving test? Well, it wasn't as dreadful as I thought it was going to be.
But you still failed.
Did I pass? Time's beaten us, I'm afraid, Adrian. It's time to toss up the scores for Hold the Sunset. If you've not heard the podcast before, we what did we say? Five stars each? Did we say we'd have, or did we go for the subversive 5 and 6?
Well, we were trying to think. Yeah, you sort of suggested that, and then I listened back and realised I'd ignored your suggestion. Shall we be conventional, as it's attempting to be a conventional comedy?
Yeah.
Scores out of 5, and we should say that you, the listener, you can see this see this fine show. It's on Amazon to download at £2.49, which I thought was quite decent for the series. Then it turns out you've got to shell out £2.49 for each episode.
Per episode, yeah.
Frankly, I'd have another half at the pub.
Yeah.
And the conversation there will be funny. Anyway, sorry. Your scores on the doors, please, Miss Ford.
I'll out of 5, I'm going to give it 2. And that 2's for casting.
Right.
And the fact that it was, I'd say I'll give it 1 point for casting, and I'll give it 1 star for not. I still maintain that I didn't think it would, apart from the party scene, there wasn't any. It wasn't as cringeworthy as I thought it was going to be, and I'll give the other star for not being bad in that sense. I mean, I would rather watch that than My Family.
Your Family.
The series, not
series.
not My Family. But yeah,
I'd rather watch Your Family. But anyway, we'll put that to one side.
Okay.
But still, 2 out of 5 is not, it's not a pass mark in my
No,
40%. I thought you were going to say 3, being kind,
Okay.
and I was going to come in with 2. I'm now inclined, given that I appear to be hitting it harder than you, to go even lower than 2. But no, maybe I shouldn't. No, maybe that's over the top. Thing is, if you start reading Twitter reviews, everything's polarised and black and white on Twitter, isn't it? So yeah, 2. But I feel I am rounding up a bit. I'll be perfectly honest. If I could give 1.8 without sounding pretentious and too negative, I would. But yeah, let's call it 2.
well, it had to happen, I suppose, and we're only the 3rd podcast in, but the lowest so far, 3 out of 10 for the score for Hold the Sunset. And as Adrian said, you can see it for £2.49 on Amazon. You might think that's not a good way to spend £2.49.
But you did say 3 out of 10. Was that a Freudian?
So did I say 3? I
slip?
meant 4. I'd even written 4 down there. Did I say 3?
You said 3.
It's
That's
the
probably 'cause
writer. I don't know.
You probably secretly wanted to only give it 1, or you thought I did.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, obviously maths is not our strong suit, but we would love to hear your opinion, and you don't have to concur with what we say. You don't pull your punches, and you can review our review. Gosh, that's really asking for trouble, isn't it? On Twitter, we are at Comedy Slab. Do follow us. So at Comedy Slab, and you can give us your thoughts. You can put the star rating on Twitter as well. So stick around. Now, I've got a set next week's homework, haven't I?
Yeah. That star rating,
which-
by the way, can I just mention the star rating is for our podcast and not for Hold the Sunset. I don't want you all going on there and giving it 1 star. And I got confused. Yeah, sorry. Homework for next week. So, what we're gonna look at? What we're gonna review for next week?
Well, forgive me, but I'm going to tweak the profile for this podcast on Twitter, because you've mentioned radio and TV comedy, and we are breaking with all convention in episode 4 of Comedy Slab and reviewing a podcast.
Oh, okay.
So neither TV nor radio, but hey, this is the 21st century and we're in a podcast, so let's go into the digital domain. And it is Dear Joan and Jericha. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but it's starring Julia Davis and Vicky Pepperdine. I always get... Is it Pepperdine?
Pepperdine, yeah.
Thank you. And so 2 accomplished actresses, the word accomplished features in the show as well. They are, I'm not going to give too much away, but essentially agony aunts. But depending on your point of view and your taste in comedy, it might be more or less agony. So just search Dear Joan and Jericha. I do love the name Jericha. Find that at your usual podcatcher. I'm saying this to you, Shane, and also to the listener. They might want to do their homework before we do what we do with it next week.